Life understandably changes a lot after wrestling, so it's also totally understandable that wrestlers wouldn't look the same after retiring from the ring. But these guys you might not even recognize if you passed them on the street. Half of the tag team The Nasty Boys, Brian Knobbs, real name Brian Yan Drisovitz, got his start in the AWA in 1986, first trying to be a singles wrestler before forming his infamous tag team with Jerry Saggs. The team then made their way to Florida Championship Wrestling and WCW. In 1990, the Nasty Boys jumped to WWE for the better part of 3 years. They were managed by Jimmy Hart and had feuds with the other big tag teams of the time. At WrestleMania 7, Knobbs and Saggs reached the pinnacle of their success, defeating the Hart Foundation for the WWE Tag Team Championships. They lost the titles to the Legion of Doom at SummerSlam later that year. After returning to WCW in 1993, the Nasty Boys enjoyed their greatest sustained success, capturing the WCW World Tag Team Championships on 3 occasions. Knobbs returned to singles competition as well, going on to win 3 WCW Hardcore Championships before leaving the company in 2000. In 2007, more than 14 years after their previous appearance in WWE, Knobbs and Saggs reunited as the Nasty Boys to work a dark match at WWE SmackDown, defeating Drew McIntyre and Dave Taylor. However, the Nasty Boys reportedly caused chaos at the SmackDown tapings, and their tenure was cut short. In 2010, the Nasty Boys briefly joined TNA Wrestling for what would be their final run. Knobbs was known to be a close friend of Hulk Hogan and has been seen with him quite a bit in recent years. Knobbs has also had 2 GoFundMe campaigns for health issues and appears at conventions and signings.
It's gonna get crazy, it's gonna get wild, and it's damn sure it's gonna get nasty.
Though he had some singles success, Rick Steiner did not have the championship career that his tag team partner brother Scott had after the Steiner brothers went their own ways. That said, his legacy definitely lives on through his son, WWE star Braun Breaker, who inducted both his father and uncle into the 2022 Hall of Fame class. Only Harlem Heat has more recognized WCW Tag Team Championship runs than the Steiners, who are tied with the Minnesota Wrecking Crew with 7. The real-life Robert Rex Steiner was a runner-up for the Big Ten Championship in collegiate wrestling at Michigan, where he held the record for fastest pin in school history at just 15 seconds. Steiner was introduced to pro wrestling by fellow WWE Hall of Famer George the Animal Steele, making his debut in 1984. Between 1985 and 1987, Steiner competed for several promotions, ending up in WCW and eventually aligning with Scott. The Steiners left for WWE in 1992, where they captured Tag Team Gold twice. Since retiring from in-ring competition, Steiner has appeared on NXT, where he was abducted and locked inside a cage during Breaker's feud with Joe Gacy. Luckily, he was fine. Bob Backlund was one of the longest-reigning WWE champions in history, though there was some fudging of the records to give him that distinction. He actually lost the title to Antonio Inoki in 1979 and won it back a few weeks later, but Inoki's title reign is not recognized by WWE at all. They list Backlund's 2,135-day reign as unbroken. Backlund is probably best known for being the guy behind the guy who made Hulkamania possible. He dropped the title to the Iron Sheik at Madison Square Garden on December 26, 1983. Less than a month later, Hogan beat the Sheik and the rest was history. By then, Backlund had become something of an afterthought. By the end of 1984, he was gone from WWE. In 1992, Backlund returned 2 years later, adopting his Mr. Backlund persona and eventually winning the WWE Championship from Bret Hart at Survivor Series 1994, when Hart's mom Helen threw in the towel. 3 days later, Backlund dropped the belt to Diesel at a house show. Backlund has made a few guest appearances for WWE in the years since. He even wrestled back in 2018 at 68 years old for Tradition Pro Wrestling in Japan. Gene Snitsky cut his teeth on the independent circuit beginning in 1997 before finding a home in Pennsylvania's World Extreme Wrestling. After 3 years there, he signed a developmental deal with WWE and reported to Ohio Valley Wrestling before hitting the main roster house show circuit for a series of matches against Kane. The two competed in Snitsky's Raw debut in September 2004 in the infamous angle that saw him accidentally injure Lita, who in storyline was pregnant, causing her to miscarry. Snitsky's run in WWE lasted about 4 years and included a stint in the WWE's ECW. He briefly returned in 2023 for a disturbing backstage segment with Chelsea Green Green on Raw, where he delivered his infamous catchphrase, "It wasn't my fault." Since then, Snitsky has been mostly retired, though he has occasionally bounced around the independents, most notably Major League Wrestling. Outside of wrestling, Snitsky became a pitchman for the Power Pressure Cooker XL, where he adopted the persona of Turkey Dude, a social media marketing tactic intended to promote the product. Snitsky was featured on the product's website in a series of webisodes called The Adventures of Turkey Dude.
Never suffer from dry turkey syndrome again.
Considering that his character was an adult film star, it isn't hard to put together that the peak of Val Venis' WWE career was during the envelope-pushing Attitude Era of the late 1990s. His first feud was with the villainous Kaientai stable, and it instantly became infamous among fans. The group's manager, Yamaguchi-san, attempted to cut off Venus' most prized asset with a sword after Venus had an affair with his wife. Venus was only saved with some help from John Wayne Bobbitt. Seriously. From there, Venus had a string of storylines in which he was said to have slept with opponents' wives, girlfriends, and family members. His transgressions were symbolically avenged when he lost to China in the first round of the 1999 King of the Ring tournament. He took a hiatus and returned with a dialed-back character, who eventually became an authority figure working under Raw general manager Eric Bischoff. By 2009, with WWE in its PG era, Venus was off to the independent scene, where he stayed active until 2023, almost always under the Venus persona. He also had a short in TNA in 2010 under his real name, Sean Morley. In recent years, Morley has become a cannabis advocate and entrepreneur. He also describes himself as an anarchist on social media, where he promotes some controversial apparel and regularly espouses his anti-trans views. Haku's reputation as one of the most legitimate tough guys the wrestling industry has ever seen has been corroborated by many of his peers. Born Tonga Fafita on the island of Tonga, Haku played rugby in high school. At 15, he was sent to Japan by the King of Tonga to study sumo wrestling. He reached the third highest division of the Japan Sumo Association. A dispute with the administration led Haku and his countrymen to retire from sumo, and he moved on to study professional wrestling. Within a year, Haku and Tonga Kid, aka Tama, were wrestling in WWE as the Islanders, as they would continue to do until Bobby Heenan transferred the King's crown from fellow Heenan family member Harley Race, who was injured, to anoint Haku as King of the Ring in the summer of 1988. His reign would last until April 1989, when he lost the crown to Hacksaw Jim Duggan. Haku moved on to form the colossal connection with Andre the Giant and capturing the WWE Tag Team Championships. Haku then became Ming for a 6-year stint in WCW, often tagging with the Barbarian in the Faces of Fear. He returned to WWE at the 2001 Royal Rumble to spark a run that lasted through early 2002. He remains semi-active, last wrestling for ACW in April 2024. He was seen and name-dropped by Paul Heyman at the 2024 WWE Hall of Fame induction ceremony. His sons Tama Tonga and Tonga Loa recently debuted in WWE. Fred Ottman had a pretty good career overall, but he'll forever be infamous for one moment: the debut of the Shockmaster, but we'll get to that in a minute. Ottman began his career in 1984 and would eventually debut on WWE TV as Tugboat Thomas in 1990. Tugboat later aligned with none other than Hulk Hogan, and if you could get past his toot-toot rallying cry, made for a pretty solid wingman for the Immortal One in his budding rivalry with Earthquake. But no good alliance lasts forever, and the pair split when Tugboat turned on his teammates, the Bushwhackers, in a 6-man tag against Earthquake and the Nasty Boys. He then aligned with Earthquake and changed his name to Typhoon to form the Natural Disasters under Jimmy Hart's guidance. The team captured WWE Tag Team Gold, but by the end of 1993, both Earthquake and Typhoon were both gone from WWE. This led to the Shockmaster in WCW, who famously fell down and lost his helmet the very first time fans saw him. Ottman revealed in an episode of Dark Side of the Ring that he still gets significant residuals from Shockmaster merchandise, autograph signings, and so on. So he got the last laugh, it seems.
I have a shock for you. The Shockmaster is coming.
Ed Leslie has been known by many names, but is forever Brutus the Barber Beefcake, his WWE persona, which led to a 2019 Hall of Fame induction. But it's worth noting his many other gimmicks: Brute Force, Brother Brute-Eye, the Booty Man, the Butcher, the Man with No Name, the Disciple, Ed Boulder, Eddie Boulder, Dizzy Golden, Dizzy Hogan, Eddie Hogan, and who could forget the Zodiac. If it wasn't clear, Beefcake goes way back with Hulk Hogan, all the way to high school, growing up just a few blocks away from each other in Tampa, Florida. Leslie's WWE run lasted from 1984 to 1993, but his barber gimmick was undoubtedly the highlight. He earned the nickname after helping Roddy Piper defeat Adrian Adonis in a hair match. From there, Beefcake started strutting and cutting his way to the ring, garden shears in hand. Eventually, he aligned with Hogan against Randy Savage and Zeus. Any momentum he had from that was unfortunately thwarted by a horrific parasailing accident in 1990. His injuries required complete reconstructive surgery, necessitating an incision from ear to ear, his face peeled down, and his scalp pulled back so the doctors could reconstruct the bones of Leslie's face. His return to WWE in 1993 only featured a pair of televised matches. The most memorable moment was the barbershop talk show episode that featured Shawn Michaels super-kicking Marty Jannetty and then ramming him through the set's window to end the Rockers as a tag team. With WCW from 1994 until 1999, Leslie endured a litany of terrible gimmicks before departing for good, toiling around the independents until retiring in 2015. Leslie was recently the focus of an episode of Dark Side of the Ring.